If you like links in the show notes, you're going to love this episode. This is Corey, and this is the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob.
So, St. Patrick's Day, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had something interesting happen.
Oh, we're just going to dive right in. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
What happened?
Something interesting happened? Please tell me.
Yes.
Me and Laura.
Wait. Should we save it for the podcast, or?
Well, we're recording now.
Oh.
You don't remember when we did the intro? Laura and I took the circulator to Fells Point.
It's time for the circulator. It's time for the circulator. Anyway.
One of the few city services I really enjoy.
Right. And by the way, we patented that song.
Yeah.
3 months before it became the song for the circulator. Pretty sure they bugged the circulator. They heard us singing it and stole our idea.
Yeah. They probably stole a whole bunch of our ideas if they got it on the circulator.
We were super drunk on the circulator a lot.
talking about all our great ideas.
Yes, bastards. Anyway, so you're on the circulator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we get off right near Raw Sushi. And if you know the area, there's a little snippet of waterway. Anywho, I was looking in the water, because that's what I like to do. I like to look in the water and get disgusted and get angry about it. Mm-hmm. And I saw a dead floating fish. Mm-hmm. I said, wow, that pollution killed that fish. And by pollution, I mean what we like to call water.
Right. Now, I did not realize you had the autopsy skills, that you were autopsying the fish to figure out what it was.
I could just assume.
Oh, okay.
Because I know that if I jumped in that water, I'd be dead.
Now I'm picturing you floating, belly up.
Even if I didn't die immediately from getting in the water, like the Terminator being dumped in the acid. With the
thumbs up.
Thumbs up as I go down. I lived a good life. I start looking around and I see multiple dead fish. I would say a dozen and a half. And clearly looked like they were swimming peacefully. Just
right.
Like, hey, I'm going to go down this little tributary. And then all of a sudden, death. And then they floated to the top, and that's where they stayed.
Oh.
So, yeah, I was quite angry about it. So I tweeted Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, as any good citizen would.
Right. Sorry.
And I was none too happy that I didn't get a reply. So I figured I'd vent about it on the podcast. But then I had the argument with you while I was drinking, which is always a good time
right.
to have an argument with Rob.
Because that was also St. Pat's.
Yeah.
That was St. Pat's, right.
And you were saying, like, well, what's she supposed to do about it? And then that got me thinking, that's true. Maryland politicians, for the most part, have to promise 3 things. Mm-hmm. We're going to lower crime.
Right. Let's say specifically Baltimore area.
Baltimore City specifically,
PG
I guess.
County, they're not saying reduce crime. They're saying, we're going to keep the dark people over there.
White with pride.
We'll get to that later, racist. It's fine.
Get crime down, especially the murder rate.
Right.
Because that one's the most important.
Of course.
Not the 30% rise in rape and violent assault.
Rape's inevitable. I mean, I think we can all agree.
Listen, any citizen... In Rome, they raped people.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Okay, we got to stop the murder.
Rome was the greatest civilization in the world until something happened. But yeah, so it's lower crime, better schools, and fix the harbor.
Right. And
I would like to say for the record that the murder rate has pretty much remained the same.
Not true.
Well, okay.
The actual murder rate, the number of people being killed, yes. The number of reported murders is down.
Actually, the number of people being killed is down.
Oh, really?
It has been going down. I mean, slightly. We're still at 200-something murders a year.
Right, yeah.
Let me tell you a quick story about population.
Sure.
Through 1850, Baltimore was the second largest city in the country.
Which amazed me.
And
what was the first? New York?
New York.
Okay.
But there's a very real explanation for this. A very standard explanation for this.
Port of Baltimore.
Port of Baltimore is the second largest immigration port in the country at that time. It's bigger than Philadelphia, bigger than Boston. So more people are coming in.
Right.
Through New York, obviously first, and then Baltimore after that.
Anyway.
Well, yes, through 1860. Mm-hmm. Sorry, excuse me, 1850.
Okay.
Baltimore is the second largest city.
Right.
All the way up until 1980, it's still in the top 10 of population. But around 1960 is where it really starts to drop.
Okay.
And we have a couple things happening here, which I think are interesting enough to warrant conversation.
And my first guess was white flight.
A lot of white flight.
Yeah.
During the 40s, I believe, the 1940s, there wasn't a change in the overall population.
Right.
But 200,000 white citizens left Baltimore City, and 200,000 black citizens came in.
Right.
So while the population change didn't change too much, the demographics of the city changed drastically. What had happened was around the turn of the century, 1910, I want to say, is when the public housing started.
Right.
They started building low-income housing.
It wasn't public housing. It's
housing and urban development started at that time.
And then they started stacking people together, basically.
But what they had at that time was segregated public housing.
Okay.
So they had black public housing areas, and they had white ones. And then as segregation ended, it spread across the entire city, and whoever was wherever they wanted to be. Mm-hmm. Well, not wherever they wanted to be, but, they were in a project somewhere in the city.
Nobody wanted to be there. They were put there. But yeah.
And there were incidents, obviously, along the way, too. The race riots sort of led to a lot of white flight.
Right.
Here's where the story gets interesting, at least to me. There was a thing known as blockbusting, which happened around the 50s, I think it was, where a real estate developer would buy a house on a white neighborhood. And then they would sell it at under market cost to a black family.
Losing money
to sell it to a black family.
Yeah.
And then once the black family moved in, it would cause all the white people to want to leave.
Right.
Because this is still when it was racist, segregated Baltimore, and they didn't want the black family on the neighborhood.
Right.
They thought it was trouble was coming because of that. So they would be selling their houses at a way below market value just to get out.
Right.
Like, our houses are worthless now that we have a black family in the neighborhood. And then they'd sell them for less and then sell them to a real estate developer who would then sell them to black families.
But keep in mind, this is probably one real estate guy.
Right.
The guy buys the house, pays cash, mortgages it himself to the first black family, and then buys at a reduced cost all the white families' homes with the intent of also mortgaging them himself, not through a bank, but mortgaging them himself to the black families. So that he, in making money, has now kind of lost money out in the short term, but it's a long-term investment.
I would like to mention specifically an article from 1910.
Right.
A house was sold on 1834 McCullough Street, which is in West Baltimore.
Okay. Yeah, that's the same.
There was a front page headline in the Baltimore Sun. Negro Invasion was the title of the headline when a black person bought a house in the city of Baltimore in 1910.
Baltimore Sun.
Yeah.
The paper of record.
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Thank God.
Yeah. I just feel like J. Jonah Jameson is there. What? A black family moved in.
Negro Invasion.
Stop the
front
press.
page. Like nothing else happened that day.
By the way, and that
Flower
shows,
Mart, you're getting bumped to page 2.
Once again, shows the very incredible acting skills of J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons,
who now becomes not only J. Jonah Jameson, but every angry newsman I ever hear of. I now think of J.K. Simmons doing that character. So,
well, I think as much as we talk about race today and where race relations stand, there was a front page headline.
Right. Yeah.
Negro Invasion when somebody bought a house. So keep that in mind. That's how serious it was.
And people next door would then say, although the house is worth $100,000, I only owe $80,000. So if you'll pay me $80,000, I'll move. And then the real estate developer says, well, I'll give you $70,000. And they're like, Deal.
Fine. Whatever.
Yeah, get me out of this neighborhood.
No, but so what eventually happened was a lot of black families got caught up with the same sort of thing that happened with the latest financial crash.
Right.
Which is banks betting against them being able to pay their homes.
Subprime mortgages,
Yeah, the one specifically that I was reading, there was a story about a 54-year-old or a janitor who made $54 a week.
Right.
Which, again, obviously...
It's the 1950s.
Yeah, it was. That wasn't $54 today's money.
Decent salary, actually, now that I think about it, probably.
Probably, yeah. But his rent/mortgage at the home was $37 a week.
Yeah. So you're just not.
He didn't have enough money to feed the 8 kids that he had. Which is not me being presumptive. That was actually written in the piece. He had 8 kids. But the other problem that was happening a lot, and which led to a lot of the vacancies and the blight, is that black people could own homes.
Right.
For, 1800s until
1910,
basically, when the one black guy broke
purchased
through.
a home, we can't get rid of him.
Front page news. But right about the time where black people started buying homes was the time when there was a lot more regulation that went into home ownership. Right. You had to keep your building up to code. You had to have insurance. You had to have, running water. Like all these sort of all the codes that involved home ownership.
Things we think about today, but were
new back then.
Yeah.
Was something that the black homeowner was completely unprepared for. Right. And often would not do them. Like, what are they going to do? Kick me out of my home?
I own this place.
I own this place.
Right.
But then they'd kick you out of the home because you didn't keep up the house.
Right.
And then nobody wanted to buy the house in the black neighborhood. And then
number one,
that home that was owned in 1950 has just been vacant, and now the roof has collapsed. And
not only did they not want to own the home in the black neighborhood, but because it wasn't kept up to code, now you're buying a house for $50,000 that you're going to have to put $20,000 into to get it up to code to even move in.
Right.
So I'm not going to make that kind of investment. I wouldn't make that in a good neighborhood, let alone this neighborhood, and then it just always sits vacant.
Well, then there was also the rise of the public housing project, high-rise towers.
Right.
Which, 60s, 70s was the heyday of that.
Right. And
the locations in which they built them mostly were built around housing projects that were already there, the low rises.
Right, yeah.
If you remember The Wire, they had the low rises and the high rises.
Right.
Low rises came first, and then they built high-rise towers.
Right.
That were housing projects.
By the way, I love that the 60s, that was just 60s style. Because the Charles Center also has the same style building, but it was like upper class living versus projects, but it looks the same on the outside.
But if you look where they built those things, it was because for pretty much the last 70 years, 80 years, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard has sort of been the dividing line.
Well, I don't think
between
it was 60
because it used to be Fulton.
Okay, you mean when it was Fulton?
No. Well, I mean it was something else before that. But I'm saying
what was Martin Luther King?
Well, no, because there was other roads there. I think.
Well, because Martin Luther King.
I think they just built that in as a new.
Martin Luther King became Martin Luther King in 92.
Oh well, yeah. I'm not saying I'm sort of speaking generally of
that road.
Yeah, where you would know it today.
Right.
Fulton used to be the dividing line between black Baltimore and white Baltimore.
Right.
For a long time. And then as that line started moving closer towards Martin Luther King, is when housing projects were developed right on that line.
Okay.
So if you looked at where the most infamous predominantly black, horrible crime rate housing projects were, they were lined along MLK.
Right.
And almost in a way that, we're building the sort of the wall you spoke of.
Yeah.
This is where it ends. This is the...
Well, and what you'll find on the other side of MLK is hospitals, or historical buildings.
Yeah.
Like Ridgely's Delight, which in your covenants, in your deed, you cannot tear the building down. You can renovate the inside, but you can't tear it down.
Yeah.
And that's to make sure you keep the historical building up.
And you can't do anything you can't, make any changes to the shutters.
No, nothing.
Those sorts of things are...
You can buy 6 of them right side by side, but you have to keep 6 front doors and all the shutters the same and the different colors, and you can plow out the inside and make it one big house, but you got to keep it looking the same on the outside. So, yeah.
Anywho, I think that this long-standing trouble that has been the racial implications of a segregated nation have...
Yeah, we have a black president. Racism is over.
Yeah, I guess.
Post-racial society, man.
While I feel that racism is less of a problem than it was 100 years ago, I think we can all agree on that.
I think it's...
Well, it's a less obviously vocal problem than it was.
But it's now the problem is it's secret. It's like, you know, you see your mouse and you get pissed off, so you kill the mouse, but it dies in the wall and it stinks. Yeah. It's just because you don't see it anymore doesn't mean it's not even worse of a problem.
Right. But getting back to Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, here's the problem. Mm-hmm. You're concentrating on the wrong issues. Honestly, I don't think you're concentrating on any issues. Because all the issues I hear you talking about don't end up happening. Right. You say you're going to fix schools. Schools are worse than ever. Well, you say you're going to lower crime. Crime doesn't get lowered. Mm-hmm. You say that you're going to clean up the harbor, and I see dead fish floating in it.
All right, so here's what I'll say about... I don't blame Stephanie Rawlings-Blake because Baltimore City has become...
Well, she's a continuance of a problem.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
She's along... You know, you can blame Stephanie Rawlings-Blake for the same thing you can blame Sheila Dixon for, the same thing you can blame Martin O'Malley for.
Schaefer. It's... Well, and, you know, Schaefer did other things, but he also ran on the same shit and he didn't do it. The mayor of Baltimore is a stepping stone to the governorship. Mm-hmm.
I'm really kind of shocked that she's mayor.
Well, because she was chosen.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was president of the city council, so she had to move up to mayor. And
she was chosen by governor. And she was chosen by Sheila Dixon, who was chosen by Martin O'Malley, who was chosen by... I don't blame Rawlings-Blake because she is just the latest of a line of people who are doing this. But the system's broken.
I'm going to say something that people aren't going to like to hear. Okay. But I think we might need a couple take your medicine mayors. Yeah. Because the problems that need to be fixed are not sexy.
No. These problems are so interdependent that there is no fix. It's you got to fix all of them. You can't address just one of them. That's really my point about
that. Sort of the ground roots of segregation, which has caused all this trouble throughout the years, which has trickled down to this problem, is still part of the problem that we can't fix. Yep. Like, we've sort of dug ourselves a hole so deep that we can't get out.
Well, and it's been passed on from parents to children. Yeah. I mean, there is a greater societal problem at work here. And I mean, that's, for what it's worth, I've said this in previous episodes. Like, you're saying we need to take your medicine mayor. Yeah. We do. We need to have a realization with ourselves to say, neither you or I have children, but that in order to make a better world for them, we are going to take our medicine now. We are going to be the lost years where our parents got to live high on the hog and our kids get to live high on the hog, and we got to take the tough shit. That's what happens. We have to take the punishment for it. We pay higher taxes than we really should to get the money to do things.
I will say this. A take your medicine mayor doesn't have to be a bad thing.
So we do need to take your medicine mayor and a take your medicine governor and a take your medicine president. We need those things. Yeah. But are you going to vote for him? Are you going to vote for the guy that says, I got to raise your taxes because we got to take care of these problems?
I'll vote for that guy, but nobody else will.
Nobody else will. Yeah. And that's the problem. And he's never going to win. So in last episode, or 2 episodes ago, when I'm talking about being a benevolent dictator, and how that's what we need. We need a Putin. For what it's worth, as much as I hate him,
you know what?
Realistically, that's what we need.
Well, you know what? It's about having somebody out there who is so charismatic and so revered, or so liked, that they can rise above the problems that people bring upon them. You know.
Well, I think it's also about finding a guy who doesn't care about re-election.
Well, I think this has been one of our funnier podcasts. I haven't stopped laughing since we began.
Listen, sometimes you got to have. Sometimes you need to take your medicine episode of the podcast. You don't have to worry about an NDAA prison based on this episode.
Right. That's very true.
Actually, that was a pretty serious episode, too.
Well, we did have funny moments in that one. We moved it around. Yeah. Anywho.
Well.
If you want to have more barrels of laughs, go to otheanthem.com, Corey at otheanthem.com, otheanthem on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, and Vimeo, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
It's 443-219-7595.
Excuse me. Oh, God, that's such a professional. I really want to encourage, if you listen to this whole episode and you're into the politics thing, go to foundingthefuture.us. Basically, most of the stuff we've talked about, taking your medicine, what needs to be done, all of that is on that website. I've been blogging about this stuff for years. It's all on there. So foundingthefuture.us. You can also find me on all your social networks at Robert N. Cheek, at deaddrop.com, themovementinsurrection.com. By the way, The Movement Insurrection, my book, in stores or on Amazon now, buy my book, deals with a lot of this. A lot of it is finding a charismatic leader who can't get elected because people are dumb, but who says by any means necessary. So, so anyway, you got anything else? Any other depressing stuff?
No, I think that's it. Buy your book.
Buy my book and rise up in the revolution. So, as always, you're listening to the O The Anthem podcast, part of the O The Anthem digital network. So for Corey and Mayor Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
I think our new Twitter handle should be @FuckSRB.